afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's iConnect Data training session. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. I've gone ahead and shared my screen, so if for any reason you can't see my screen, go ahead and take a quick moment to log out, log back into the webinar, and we'll begin in about 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's iConnect Data training session. My name is Chase Wilkin. I'm a senior ITS over here at Comdata, and today we'll be going over how to manage both your physical cards and ghost cards utilizing the iConnect Data website. So a few housekeeping notes to cover before we begin. Due to the fact that we have a large audience today, we do have everybody globally muted by default. However, if you do have questions throughout today's training, you can utilize either the questions box or you can use the hand raise feature on the GoToWebinar interface. And I am joined by my manager, Philip Reed, who will be assisting me in managing any questions as they come through. Another thing to note as well, despite the fact that we're going over 2 different products, we will, 95% of the information that we're going to be covering will pertain to both. Of course, I will spot out the small differences between the different products. One last thing to note, in order to make sure everything is going good with today's training, we will be performing little pop quizzes throughout the training session to help keep both sides accountable for the information being covered. So again, if you have any questions before those pop quizzes, be sure to ask them if there's anything that you were unsure of throughout today's training. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get things started. So here we are on the login page. Of course, you should have received your credentials a little bit beforehand. If you had an existing account with us, we simply would have upgraded your existing account code to now include your new account code. So without further ado, let me go ahead and get logged into the website. And if this is your first time logging in, after you enter a temporary password, you'll then have a large pool of images to choose from, and you can customize an image caption to go along with it. If for any reason you don't see your familiar image and or image caption, you could be on the wrong website. All right, and again, if this is your first time here, you're gonna have to set up 3 security questions, and I highly recommend picking the ones with the most memorable answers, because as you can see, you have to answer at least one every time you log in. All right, so without further ado, let's cover what you're seeing here at the home page. So to start things off, our top tier administrators on the account, so essentially those with tier 1 access, would be able to see this credit summary button. If I click on this credit summary button, here, if you need to populate the credit limit for your account code, or either the current available limit, if you want to look at anything at a pre-auth amount, this is where you'll be able to do so. So in order to populate this information, all you have to do is simply type in the Comdata account code you want to take a look at, click on the retrieve balances, and all the information will populate here for you. Also, you can hover over the question block if you had any, if you weren't sure about what any of these fields might have meant, and it'll let you know what's going on. Next thing we're going to cover over here in the top right-hand corner will be the quick links section. So once you've gotten a little bit more familiar with the website and you want to save yourself a few extra clicks, this is where you'll want to go to customize your home page to make it a little bit quicker and easier to get to certain features you're using on a daily or weekly basis. So in order to edit this, all we have to do is simply click on the Select My Quick Links. Here you'll be able to see activities, and the reports will be somewhat organized here. You'll have your activities on the left, various features found in the Manage tab, and reports which will be various reports found in the reporting section. So all you have to do is simply scroll down, find which options you want to add, click the OK button, and then it'll update on the home page, and that'll be right here for you. All right, next thing we're going to cover, we're going to look for our user ID in the top right-hand corner, and then we're going to click on the drop-down arrow right next to that. So here we can see shortcuts to reset the image key and security questions. We can also dive a little bit further into our own personal profile. So from here, you can see the first and last name and your email address and phone number on file. Highly recommend if your email address changes for any reason, please be sure to keep it updated here because this will drive a handful of automated emails as well as your password reset. And the other two automated emails worth mentioning here are as follows down here that you can opt in for. One being the early notification report. If you have a line of credit with us and if you have this option enabled, if you ever reach 80% of that current credit limit, this will send you a notification simply saying, hey, you've reached 80% of your credit limit, please be advised. So if you ever receive this email, you would then want to hop onto the website, go to that credit summary tab I showed you earlier, and from there you can make the determination of, no, I think we need to make a early payment, or I think we can make it till the next cycle reset. Another option available to you will be the invoice reports. So the day your invoice generates, this will simply send you an email letting you know, hey, your invoice has been created. Please be sure to log onto the website to retrieve it. Now, this will not send you the invoice directly. It's simply just a reminder for you. So if you decide you do or do not need any of the notifications, you can simply select your deselect them, hit submit, and it'll update on the home page for you. All right, last thing we're going to cover is another feature for our Tier 1 administrators. So if again, if you see that credit summary tab, you should see this next button as well. So in the past, let's say, for example, you've hired on a new employee at your company. They're going to be in charge of managing the Comdata cards, similar to either yourself or another administrator, and you need to get them an iConnect Data login. So usually in the past, you would have had to send that request to Comdata. There'd be some back and forth in regards to the information we need to add, and then anywhere between 24 to 48 hours, we'd have that new user ID created for you. So the steps I'm going to show you now is going to save you approximately 24 to 48 hours worth of time. This should only take about 5 minutes to get somebody up and running on the website. So without further ado, let's go ahead and click this drop-down box, and we're going to go to user administration. So this is the feature that we're looking for to add new users. So here in the user administration tab, you will simply, the way the system works is it will copy an existing user ID and mirror the privileges onto the new user ID. So for example, if you wanted to plug in your user ID, and then from here you would simply create a new user ID for your new person, and this will mirror all the account codes that you have access to, all of the features that you have access to, reports, management, etc., will be mirrored to that new user. So when it comes to creating a new user ID, I highly recommend utilizing the similar naming schema that we use for your user IDs, which is generally your Comdata account code, followed by your first and last initial. So that would look a little something like this. So AB123 is my Comdata account code. CW is, of course, my initials. This helps for two things. One, it helps keep your user IDs unique because they do need to be unique across all of our customers. And trust me, we have a lot, so it could be if you're keeping them too generic, you could very easily run into duplicate IDs. Also, if you keep them starting similarly, this will help the system when it comes to trying to pick out which user you want to copy from the list as you're typing it out. So, quick example about that. If we show you in the top right-hand corner, you're going to see the IMP help desk. All of our user IDs start off like that. So once I start typing in IMP, I'm going to have a drop down here. I can see, okay, here's mine, there's John's, there's Jane's, and I can easily click from there. So the information you have to fill out, pretty basic, first, last name, email address, and you're going to have an additional call-in button. And if you hover over that, it'll let you know what's going on. So if you click on this, you would then have a fourth required field called the code word field. So my recommendation in regards to the code word, and just to explain what the code word system is, if you want this individual to be able to call into the contact center, or whether it's your account manager or the call center, if they either do not know their code word or if they are not set up in the system with a code word, they will not be able to give them any assistance in regards to the details about your account. And they do treat this system extremely seriously because this is essentially Comdata's last line of defense to protect your account against all the fraudsters in the world. So again, we treat it very seriously. So in order to get this set up, All you have to do is just come up with a code word with your new user. It could be any combination of numbers or letters, just no special characters, and they do need to be unique across everybody within your account. So you can't have everybody with the exact same code word. One last thing to note as well, if you were to send this request into Comdata, by default, we will always ask for all 4 lines of this information as well. So once you get all this information squared away, you would simply hit on the Create User button. The screen will refresh. It'll show you little progression ellipses that'll go through right here in the middle of the screen. And once it refreshes back to the home page, at the top here, it'll let you know if the user ID was successfully created or if there were any issues when it was creating that ID. So on the flip side of things, we know how to add a new person. Now let's say we need to delete an existing user. In order to do so, we're going to simply click on the Delete User button here. Here, all you have to do is simply type in that user ID, click the Delete User button, and then from there, they'll no longer have access to your cards. Okay, so that will conclude the home page. So before I move into the bulk of today's training, we'll take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions for me. I have an excellent question here. So Carolyn has asked, what if you forget your code word? So if you do happen to forget your code word, there is a system in place that you would be able to send an email to support@comdata.com, and then they can follow through the steps to get your code, to provide you with a new code word, and you can get that set up with them. If you're still in the implementation process, you can simply reach out to your project manager or coordinator, and we can get that squared away for you as well. Thank you. Excellent question. Okay, we look to be in good shape, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the bulk of today's training, and that will be various features found in the Manage tab. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to order a brand new card, whether it is a physical card or a ghost card. So to start things off, we're going to click on the Manage tab. We're going to go down to Cards. Now, you probably noticed I've skipped over an option here that says New Card Order and New Card Maintenance. Let me go ahead and say that these are still newer features and they haven't quite ironed out all the kinks in both of these features. So I highly recommend always making your way to Manage and Cards in order to either order cards or perform maintenance on cards, which of course I'll show you how to do in a little bit. So one more time, we're going to Manage, we're going to Cards, and from here, we're going to go down to the bottom option here to the left that says Order Cards. So once I click on that, this is going to show us our account code and customer IDs. If you have multiple, you'll have a drop-down box available to you. Otherwise, once I select this customer ID, this page is going to refresh. And from here, we'll be able to see which purchasing profile we can put this on. Quick reminder, purchasing profiles essentially dictate how much this card can spend and where it can spend. And here's our first difference between physical cards and ghost cards. So if you're ordering a physical piece of plastic, whether it is an employee card or a vehicle card, you will want to use the punch card option. Otherwise, you can select the ghost card option and it'll create a card that will only exist in iConnect data. So to start things off, I'm going to show you what it looks like to order a physical card, and more specifically than that, an employee card. Then we'll double back and I'll show you the small difference between that and a ghost card. So we're going to go ahead and click on here. And here you can see all the information that you'll need to fill out. So for employee cards, you will need to fill out, of course, the first and last name and employee number. The last name field, this is the only thing that's going to change between employee and vehicle cards. Employee cards, as you can see, you type in whatever you need to. The last names for the vehicle cards will have a drop-down box instead where you can select between all of the allowed last names. So that will range between truck, unit, airplane, etc. All right, further down, you'll have various miscellaneous reporting information. Use it at your own discretion. Further down from here, you will see the address information available to you. So the customer ID address would essentially be the standard mailing address that we would have on file for you. If that's not going to work for this card, you can send it to the account code address, which is generally speaking the billing address if it's going to be any different. If neither one of those are going to work, you can send it to the card address, and you can send this to wherever you need to. Now we're going to double back just a little bit to our delivery method options available to you. So to cover your options, the first three are at no additional cost to you. So UPS second day and ground, both your standard international shipping, or excuse me, your standard domestic shipping. If you need to ship a card internationally, you would want to select the UPS Worldwide Expedited. But if you need to rush a card within the United States, you would select the UPS Next Day Air. However, if you do so, there will be an additional charge involved with that. So once I click on that, this will pop up with the fee schedule here. From here, it'll explain however many cards you order will determine the fee based on how many cards you order within that cutoff time. That cutoff time being 10:45 a.m. Central Time. Also, keep in mind you need to place your card orders before this time frame in order to meet the next day business delivery options. If you accept the fee, it'll save your option. If you click no, it's going to default back to UPS second day air, as you can see down here at the bottom. All right, and further down from here, you'll see the cardholder contact information. Again, this is only for employee cards, but if you want this individual to be enrolled in the alerts and notifications, you can simply select the email notification box, the alert box, and then type in their mobile number and cardholder email. And then once you click confirm, the next screen will ask you to verify all of the information that you've input. And then from that screen, once you hit submit, it'll bring you back to the first portion here. And from here, it would show you that the card has been successfully created. All right. So I do see I have a question in the box. I'm going to let my manager take care of that one for you. So Carolyn, just hang tight while he types up his response for you. All right. So the next thing I'm going to show you, we're going to back up one, and I'm going to show you what it looks like to create a ghost card. So from here, as you can see, we have the punch card selection. So now we're going to take a look at what it looks like to order a ghost card. So on the next screen, here you can see essentially this first half is all the exact same that we've already seen, from the first name to the miscellaneous information. Now you can see that the address information is missing because this ghost card is only going to exist in iConnect at a website. So just be sure to keep that in mind. You know, you can populate an address after the card's been created if you need it for online verification purposes. All right, so once you fill out all the information here and you click confirm, the biggest difference from here is, you know, this is essentially your final confirmation screen. You know, once you click confirm, this is going to take you to the next screen. It's going to say, hey, your card has been successfully created. And, you know, you would also have options to go straight to the edit screen, or you can go to, there would also be a security code button near the bottom next to this, so you'd see the confirm or cancel and security code. And if you click on that security code button, that will show you the CVC2 and the expiration date for that card. If for any reason you missed that when you create the card, you can always double check that in the card maintenance section. Okay, so without further ado, that will conclude card orders. So before I move on to the next section, which is card management, we'll go ahead and take another quick pause to see if I have any questions. All right, I see we do have another question. So we have another question asking whose name goes in the first and last name. So really, it's just whoever you want this card to send out to. You know, if you're needing to create this card for an employee, you know, if maybe you're creating ghost cards for, you know, particular vendors, you can name it that vendor if you want, just to help keep everything organized on your end. So really, it's just whatever you want to name it. So it's entirely up to you. Okay, I don't see any additional questions, so I'm going to go ahead and continue forward. So the next thing we're going to cover is card management. So to start things off, we're going to start off on the home page. We're going to go to Manage. We're going to go to Cards, again, skipping over that card maintenance button there. And from here, we're going to go to this card maintenance button here. I promise they are totally different buttons. All right, so from here, again, we're going to double check our account code and customer ID. If we had a particular card we were wanting to search for, and if we knew any of that information, we can try filtering it down here. Otherwise, if you leave it blank and hit submit, this will pull up your full card listing. So from here, you'll be able to see all the cards that you've ever created under this particular customer ID. So if we want to dive into a little bit deeper into any of these cards, we can have three ways of doing that. We can either click on the edit button, we can click on the employee number, or we can click on the card number. So to start things off, we're going to take a look at John Dawson's card here. Now this is an employee card. So we're going to cover everything that can be adjusted after the card has been created. So another really important thing to note, any updates that you make here on this screen will update in real time. So the moment you make a change, hit submit, and refresh the page, this is going to be up and live and running. So just be sure to keep that in mind. From here, you can adjust the employee number. You'll have various card statuses available to you. So you can move the status between active, blocked, any number of times with no issues. However, you can always move the card to the stolen, suspected fraud status, but that is a permanent block on that card. So if you are in a situation where if you think there's fraud, but if you're not 100% certain, or if you need to be able to let this cardholder continue using their card, do not put it to the stolen, suspected fraud status right away. You can simply block it first, and then once you're beyond a shadow of a doubt, you're certain, then you can upgrade to the stolen, suspected fraud status. Further down here, you can see the purchasing profile. You can swap that card to, your additional reporting information, and of course the address the card was sent to, and the alerts notifications information. So another feature for our physical cards will be this one-time purchase override. So let's say, for example, we have John Dawson out here. They're needing to make a really large purchase, and none of the current profiles that you have available are going to cover this particular purchase. So in order to get them up and running for just the very next swipe, we will then want to go to one-time purchase. And the way the system works is we can dictate exactly how much we want this card to be allowed up to, and then once we hit submit, his card will then move to a temporary profile that will only be valid for the very next swipe up to however much you allowed, and the inclusion of allowing any merchant category code. So if you had restrictive profiles, that were limiting different MCCs, perhaps if you run into an MCC block, this is the way to correct that temporarily. So once you get all that input, you hit submit. Again, once this goes live, then your cardholder will then, again, for the very next swipe, they can go up to this transaction amount. So that's probably the biggest important thing to stress to your cardholder is that there needs to be nothing else in between that transaction and you setting up this one-time override for them. So just let them know they should be good to go from there. One last thing to note too, especially if you have like weekly or monthly limits on your profiles, you will need to add in the current dollar-day usage to the one-time override you're looking to approve them for. Setting them up with this will allow you to make sure you don't run into any cycle limitations on your cards. Okay, so we're going to double back here. Excuse me. And in the top left-hand corner, we have a little shortcut to take us back to the card listing. So from here, we're going to show you what it looks like to edit a ghost card. So in order to make any edits to a ghost card, again, same way, simply click on either the edit, employee number, or card number. And from here, you can see essentially all this is pretty much the exact same that we've already seen before. You're now going to have the option for a card address. So again, if you need to have an additional address for online verification purposes, you can plug that in here. A little bit further down, you will see the security code button. So this is especially important for ghost cards to, if you click on the security code, you can then see the CVC2 number and the expiration date. So as another quick recap as well, this button is only available for ghost cards because this card is there's no physical piece of plastic ever created. So this is normally information that is embossed on the card. So again, option is not available for physical cards, but it is of course available for ghost cards. Okay, so that will conclude card maintenance. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick pause for any questions over anything I've covered so far. Okay, we have another good question here. So the customer is asking, can only tier one users issue an employee or issue a ghost card or any type of card for that matter? So the answer to that question is a tier one and a tier two have access to be able to create cards. Generally speaking, you can customize that a little bit, but as far as our standard tier processes go, tier one and tier two can create cards and perform maintenance on existing cards. Tier 3, which is essentially the reporting only, will not have access to any of these screens that we've covered. Okay, I do not see any additional questions. So that means we have our first pop quiz coming up. So we're going to ask two questions here utilizing the GoToWebinar interface. Once I begin this first poll, you're going to have up to 30 seconds to answer this question. Once you hit the submit button, that'll lock in that question. And of course, I will be going over the answers after everybody has submitted their question. So give me just a moment, make sure your GoToWebinar screen is pulled up. And we're going to ask our first question. So the first question is, how long does it take card updates to take effect and to be applied to a card? Okay, looks like I have all of the responses in. So I'm going to go ahead and close this poll. Although I think that will make it go away. I can't remember now. But either way, I can see everybody has answered this one correctly. And yes, the updates will take place immediately. So well done, everybody. Thank you. All right, so let me go ahead and pull up my next question. And we'll go ahead and launch this feature, or this question, excuse me. So this one is asking which feature allows an administrative tier one user to create a new user ICD or a new ICD username. All right, I think it looks like some people may not have cast their vote on this one, and I think I may have overlooked on the other one as well. Either way, we do have the results in on this one. About 79% of the people had answered this one correctly. And just to recap, the feature that allows you to create new user IDs is the user administration feature found in the top right-hand corner here. So user administration. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, excuse me, my screen wasn't showing for that. So now that I've closed it, again, as a recap, the user administration feature can be found under this drop-down box and right there in the top right-hand corner. And that's where you go to create new user IDs. And again, only for tier one. Okay, so if anybody had any questions or was unsure about any of that, just simply let us know. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and push forward to the next topic of today's training, and that will be real-time transaction history. So let's say we have cardholders that are out in the field and they're calling up and they're saying, hey, my card's being declined. I don't know what's going on. Can you help me out? So now we're going to show you where you need to go to troubleshoot any current declines as well as look at any current day-to-day transactions. All right, so from here, we're going to go to Manage. We're going to go to Transactions. And from here, we're going to go to Real-Time Transaction History. All right, so from here, we're going to want to double check our account code and customer ID if we have multiples. So in this case, I'm going to find our particular customer ID. I'm just going to scroll down here. So if we had a particular cardholder on the phone, we could narrow down their card, or we can simply leave it blank at default, and it'll pull up everything within your start and your end dates. So keep in mind, your start and end dates do have certain date restrictions here. They are limited to 180 days between your start and end dates that you select. Excuse me. And they can only go back up to 14-month rolling period of the current day. And that exact date will show up down here at the bottom. So be sure to keep that in mind. If you need to pull anything longer than 14 months, you will need to go to the report queue to pull those reports. And of course, I'll show you how to do that later. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up some test transactions. I'm going to show you what it looks like to look at some declines, and we'll go over some troubleshooting techniques in order to get around those declines. Whoop. Uh-oh. Oh. Well, looks like we're pretty close to our date range here. Oh, boy. All right. Looks like we have... Yeah, it looks like we are at the end of our training examples there. So it looks like we're going to need to create some new examples. So I'm actually going to borrow a little bit from one of our other customer IDs, and we're going to pull that up. So give me just a moment to find that one. Okay, maybe I had the wrong one selected there. Give me just a second. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that small little hiccup. So despite the fact that we're technically looking at sample virtual cards that we've created, the process will pretty much all be the same here. So here, of course, you'll be able to see the transaction time, the authorized amount that the merchant was attempting to ring up that card for, and you would also see the posted time and the posted amount once that merchant has settled on that transaction. And a little bit over here, you'll see the transaction status. These will vary between declined, authorized, posted, and credit. And of course, you'd also be able to see the cardholder name and the card number that was created. So of course, if we're looking at these transactions and, we're looking at these and we see, that they've been declined, but we still don't know exactly why they've been declined. In order to view that information, we're simply going to click on the status, and that will pull up the rest of the information. So now my challenge is to find which one of these is going to provide a good example for our world. So in this case, we're going to look in the bottom right-hand corner for all of the verbiage as far as why this transaction is being declined. So in this case, we can see it says the transaction amount limit has been exceeded, and that we need to verify the amount and adjust the limit. So in this case, we can make the assumption that this card is on a more restricted profile, and this particular transaction is simply just not going to allow that transaction to go through. All right. Also, I'm going to have to, sorry, I usually have better visual examples for all these, but as you can see, it looks like we've timed out on our samples. So other types of declines you'll probably run into will be the merchant category code declines. So I did want to cover that. So in order to view the merchant category code information, that will be found here in the top right-hand corner. So based on whatever you're running up, here you can see the 4-digit MCC, as we call it very often, about exactly what this merchant is classified as. So if your card is being declined because of this MCC, you have two ways of getting around that. One is if you had, excuse me. All right, looks like I'll have some test transactions I can play around with here, but I'll go ahead and try to cover this hypothetical situation here. So, you can either do a one-time override for that cardholder, because again, that overrides the merchant category code restrictions, or you could just simply let them know, hey, you're just not allowed to make that transaction there. But as far as getting them up and running really quick, that's the best way to do it. If you make the determination of, yeah, we need to make sure that MCC is open on our profiles, you would simply want to take this merchant category code, number, write it down, send that to your Comdata rep, and let them know which profiles this needs to be opened up for. All right, so give me just a second here. It looks like we have some new test transactions we can take a look at. Okay, so we have two transactions we'll go ahead and take a look at here. So the first one, or just take a quick look at this one. In the bottom right-hand corner, it says expiration date error. Now we need to verify the expiration date or use a new card. So in this case, if we want to verify the expiration date that was input at the point of sale, we're going to look over here to the left where we can see that expiration date. So in this case, we can see they put in 0422, and that was, in this case, not correct. So if you're physical cards, you can simply have your cardholder look at the card again, make sure they're putting in the right thing. Or if you're a ghost card, you can go to that security code button to retrieve that info. All right, so we're going to take a look, and we'll take a look at this transaction as well for $501. All right, now in this bottom right-hand corner here, if you ever see anything that says call credit department, this is kind of your worst case scenario. Hopefully nobody ever has to see this. But if you do see this, this is letting you know that there's something going on with the account as a whole and not so much with this particular card. So if you do see that, let your Comdata rep know right away, and we'll do everything we need to get you back up and running on your account. Okay, so apologize for the kind of shaky examples here for the transaction history. But of course, throughout the life of your account, you will probably run into various other types of declines along the way. And of course, if you're looking at them, if you still have no idea what's going on, feel free to reach out to your Comdata rep. We'll be more than happy to help you out with that, as it is what we're here to do. Okay, so before I move on to the next section, I'll take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions for me. Okay, it does not look like I have any additional questions. So I'm going to cover two other, I would like to just say they're maybe a little bit more niche in regards to if these features are going to pertain to you. If you are a strictly Ghost Card customer, feel free to tune me out for the next about 5 minutes or so, and these next two features are going to cover. And even more niche for the for physical cards, I'm going to show you where you need to go to manage any employee pin pools or vehicle pin pools if you opted in for some sort of prompting, and those numbers are going to be housed in a pin pool that would allow those numbers to be used on any of your cards on file. So in order to manage the pin pools, we're going to go to Manage, we're going to go to Fleet Assets, and from here, depending on the type of pool that you have, you would either select the cardholder ID maintenance for employee cards or vehicle ID maintenance for vehicle/unit numbers. Generally speaking, if you're opted in for one form of prompting, you probably won't see both of these, but depending on how your accounts are set up, you might see both. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on one of these, and here you'll be able to see your options to pull up your full list. You'll also see shortcuts to the left here to click on the add screen or view your list and make any edits to your existing IDs. So another important thing to note, your pools are generally attached directly to a customer ID. So if you have multiple customer IDs on file, you'll want to pay attention to which customer ID you're looking at here. Also, we have multiple ways of either linking them or leaving them separate. So really, due to the nature of the prompting customization options, it's about as far as I can really take you in the training. But if you've gotten to this stage and if you're still having trouble looking over your IDs, definitely reach out to your Comdata rep, as they'll be the best ones. They'll know exactly how your accounts are set up, so they'll be able to narrow in and show you exactly what you need to do to manage your pin pools. All right, so the next feature I want to cover is alerts and notifications. So again, this is only for employee cards. So as a quick recap of the alerts and notifications program, um, this is the system that, your cardholders opted into the text message and the email address. So if they ever make any transactions that our system deems as potentially fraudulent, we're going to send them a text message and ask them to confirm if that's indeed a legitimate transaction or not. So in order to manage that, we're going to go to Alerts and Notifications Manager under the Manage tab. From here, we're going to double check our account code and customer ID. And from here, you'll be able to see the 4 tabs you can navigate between to manage the Alerts and Notifications program. So to start things off, you'll see the action required. So if you have cardholders who have not answered the text message, you can answer on their behalf. Those transactions will show up here, and then you will have an option to go to the action button here to either approve or decline. So as another quick recap as far as how that system works, let's say if you have a cardholder who calls in, whether you accept it or if they accept it, their next step is to swipe that transaction again for that exact amount, because you or your cardholder are not authorizing it on the merchant's behalf. You're simply telling our system, okay, this is a legitimate transaction. We're going to go ahead and swipe it again. And then once you swipe it again, it won't decline at that point. Okay, next tab you'll have available will be the Resolve tab. So from here, you can see all of the text messages that have been answered, whether it was by the cardholder themselves or by an administrator, such as yourself. Then that will show up under the responder section here. All right, next thing you'll be able to view will be the enrollments. So here you can see everybody who's been currently enrolled in the program, or if they're still pending enrollment. So if you see somebody still lingering and they haven't accepted, you can re-trigger that action to send them that text message again. Because keep in mind, there's a 24-hour delay cutoff time between when that invitation expires. So once you click action, they have 24 hours to answer, is what I'm trying to say. All right, last thing we can manage here will be the notifications tab. So as a new initiative to the program, your cardholders should be receiving decline messages as well, like if they're running into transaction limits or cycle limits, some of the more basic information, they should be receiving those text messages. You can also review that information here. This is essentially what I would like to call like real-time transaction history light. This only has a handful of information, and you can't dig into any deeper like we can in real-time transaction. However, having said that, this can be, a good way if you want to check here first, just to take a quick look. You're feel free to do so. However, this only keeps information up to 7 days. So if it's anything longer than that, again, you'll need to go to transaction history to view all that info. Okay, so that will conclude the Alerts and Notifications Manager. So before I continue forward for today's training, I want to take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions over anything in the Manage tab that I've covered so far. All right, it does not look like I have any additional questions. So I'm going to go ahead and push forward. Now, we're done with the Manage tab, so now we're going to move into the Reporting tab. So we've had a few transactions, it's been a few weeks, we're ready to start pulling those reports and start looking at our data. So in order to do so, we're going to click on Reporting, we're going to go to Report Queue. Now make sure that pop-up blocker is disabled, or else this won't pull up in a new tab like I just did. And from the Report Queue tab, we'll then want to click on the Quick Reports. All right, as well, so depending on the products that you have, you should have either the same or perhaps less, more than likely less than what you're seeing here. So I'm going to break down certain sections here. So the Administration tab, these are going to have some more account-wide level reports. Probably one of the most important ones in here would be the Corporate Payments Account Spend Report. So this provides a nice month-to-month overview of your spending, your spend per transaction. It'll break down your top vendors. This provides lots of nice graphical summaries, so provide nice charts and graphs. Because of that, this one's only available in PDF. However, this is a really good report to bring to a monthly meeting, to really kind of show what Comdata is doing for you. All right, a little bit further down, you'll see your cardholder tab here. So this is going to house some of your most popular reports, including the most popular report, the tried and true transaction listing. Further down from here, you'll see the purchase and travel and entertainment. These are a little bit more catered towards airline, car, and hotel transactions. So based on the information that was captured, there'll be additional info based on those transactions. And back up to the top here, we'll have the fleet section. So if you're a fuel-heavy customer, you'll be pulling a lot of reports from over here. So here you can see the fuel save report, the fuel summary purchase by various categories, and you can see the MPG report, assuming your drivers are entering accurate odometer readings. All right, so the next step here, I'm going to dive into one of these reports. I'm going to go over certain restrictions that will pertain to all reports found in here in the report queue. So we're going to go ahead and click on the transaction listing. So from here, you'll want to double check your account code and your customer ID. You'll have various display information available to you based on the report, and then you're going to have your start and your end dates. So important thing to note about these date ranges here, you need to keep your search ranges within 180 days or else the report will error out. And unlike real-time transaction, these can go all the way back to the beginning of the account. So if you've been a happy customer with us for 10 years, you can go all the way back to day one to view transactions from the very beginning. Now on the flip side of things, while you can go back all the way, there is a 2-day delay between when a merchant posts a transaction and when it will populate here in the report queue. So if you need to pull any month-end reports, you will need to wait until about the 3rd of the following month before that information is available. All right, a little bit further down here, you'll also have various sort options, and depending on the report, they will be available in either PDF and or Excel. So if it's available in PDF, you can click on the View Report button. If it's available in Excel, you can click on the Excel download. Okay, and then once you're done with the report queue, you can simply click on Back to Reports, and you can click on the Close Report Queue. So my best recommendation is once you're in here, just start pulling all the different types of reports that you think are going to be relevant. And then if you're having trouble over reading any of the reports, or if it looks like there's something missing, or if you're looking for other types of data, that's when you would want to reach out to your ComData rep, and we can be more than happy to fill in the gaps of what you're looking at. Okay, so that will conclude report queue. Once you're done, simply click on the report queue, and you're back to the home page. So before I move on to the next section, I'll take another quick pause to see if I have any questions. Okay, I don't see any additional questions, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section, and that will be the Payment Center. So this is where you're going to want to go to retrieve your invoice. So you know the day has come that you need to get ready to pay the bill. This is where you'll go to retrieve your consolidated invoice. So again, we're going to go to Payment Center. We're going to click on My Invoices. And from here, you want to take a look at your any report type. Highly recommend leaving this open to any report type. There can be some miscellaneous reports that will make their way in here. You can also double check your account code and your start and your end dates. So this is a little bit different than what we're used to. These are limited to 45-day search windows, so keep that in mind. And also this can only go back up to 14 months of the current day. So if you need to make sure you've saved all of your invoices, be sure to get in the habit of downloading them straight to your computer. Once you have that selected, you would simply click on Get Reports, and from here you'll be able to see all the options that you have available to you. And again, you're looking for the consolidated invoice, and that will be available in either web browser version or a PDF. So now, unfortunately, I can't exactly emulate that next step. However, we do have a sample consolidated invoice we're going to take a look at. So here is my sample invoice. So again, if we need to know exactly how much is owed to ComData and by when, you're looking for the consolidated invoice. Here you'll see the due date and the total due that is expected to be paid in full, of course, by that due date. A little bit further down, you'll see the products available to you. If you have multiple customer IDs, it'll also break down the cust IDs and the spend on each customer ID. A little bit further down, you'll see, again, the reminder for that total due, the current credit limit if you have a credit limit, or the current available limit at the time the invoice generated. And further down, you'll see how the information will be categorized. So here you'll see the cardholder's number and the cardholder name, all of the transactions that they've had within this cycle cutoff, and then so on and so forth. So you hop onto the next card, their transactions, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll scroll down a little bit further. And then on the very last portion here, you would see the credit payment miscellaneous billing information. So here you could see their previous payment and adjustment. And then if you had any sort of miscellaneous expenses beyond just some typical card transactions, whether it was expediting cards, if for any reason Comdata applied a credit to your account, or of course, worst case scenario, if there's any late fees, they would also be broken up down here, as well as be visible at the very top under here as well. So of course, it's always a good habit to make sure you're looking at your invoice from top to bottom. If you have any questions or anything you're looking over, please let your Comdata rep know, and we're more than happy to help. Okay, so that will conclude the Payment Center. So before I move on to the next section, I'll take another quick pause to see if I have any questions. Okay, oh, no, here we go. Okay, so I have a question in regards to the invoices. Customers asking, is Comdata also sending monthly invoices for payment? So as far as the frequency goes, that's entirely dependent on how your account was set up. If you were set up for monthly, then yes, we would be sending you a monthly invoice. So perhaps maybe I also need to specify sending. So if you had in the profile section where I went over the notifications, if you enable to have the invoice reports notification, that will let you know, hey, the invoice has been generated, but we do not send out the invoices directly. We don't send them out via email or by letter or anything like that. So they're only available on the website. So again, you'd have to go into the website Payment Center looking for that consolidated invoice. Okay, and if that answers your question, awesome. If not, just feel free to let me know. We'll be happy to clarify. Okay, I don't see any additional questions. So it's time for pop quiz number 2, everybody. So again, we're going to tab back here. Make sure you tab back and make sure the GoToWebinar is active for you. So I'm going to go ahead and post our third question for today's training. And the question asks, how long does it take for a transaction information to populate in the into most report queue reports? So this is what we were going over earlier. All right, I'll give you guys 5 more seconds. I see we have a few that haven't voted. Okay, so it looks like most everybody got this one right. The correct answer is 2 days. There is a 2-day delay between when the merchants post their transactions and when the reports are available in the report queue. So again, keep that in mind. There's a 2-day delay on that. All right, so now we're going to move on to our final quiz question. And I'm going to launch that now. So what is the name of the invoice that should be used as the basis of your payment to Comdata? All right, 5 more seconds. Okay, it looks like everybody got this one right. So good job, everybody. Just to recap though, the invoice you're looking for is the consolidated invoice. So Excellent job, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll there. All right, so let's cover the last section of today's training. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize my invoice, and we're going to go to the Resource Center. Oh, excuse me, I really didn't mean to click that so soon. So we're going to start off on the home page. And the Resource Center is where you need to go if you're looking for any self-help information. So this is where we house all of our quick documents as well as additional training opportunities. So in order to pull this up, all we have to do is simply click on the Resource Center. This pulls up in a new tab, so again, make sure those pop-up blockers are disabled. And from here, you see you're greeted with the search bar and our top and most popular resources available at the bottom. So, we do have this search bar here. Let me go ahead and be the first one to say, though, it's not quite as strong as Google. That's basically reading your mind as you're typing your question. It's a lot more keyword reliant. So as long as you're being fairly clear and concise with the keywords you're putting in here, you should be able to get some good results. Otherwise, we have other ways to kind of limit the search of everything you're looking for. And again, for both virtual cards, not virtual cards, for physical cards and ghost cards, you'll be utilizing either the MasterCard Fleet tab at the top here or the MasterCard Travel and Purchasing. For ghost card customers, please don't fall for the virtual payments option here. That is an entirely different product line. Again, all the stuff we're looking for will be between these two tabs. So I'm going to start off by clicking the MasterCard Fleet. And here we can see the top questions and answers, most of the quick documents that we have on file, training opportunities, user guides, and reporting guides. So if I scroll down here under the quick documents here, we could say, okay, how do we edit a MasterCard? So once I click on the Classic Card Maintenance, here this will give us step-by-step instructions with pictures on how to perform various maintenance features. You can also download these into PDF directly to your desktop. So perhaps if you added in a new user using the user ID, user administration feature, you can send them this small handful of information, and they can learn how to use iConnect Data on their own time. All right. Also, just to show you the small difference here, so the MasterCard Fleet has about 90% of the info, and the last bit of information will be found in the Travel and Purchasing. So here you can see the rest of the questions and answers, quick documents, user guides, and reporting guides. Okay, so not only will that conclude the Resource Center, but that will conclude today's training as a whole. So before we part ways for the day, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to questions. So if anybody has any questions for me in regards to anything we've covered, feel free to go ahead and ask. Okay, it looks like we have a few questions. So I'm going to start off with the first one here. Fernando has asked, is the help feature available 24/7? So the answer is yes. So the Resource Center here will be available. Of course, you can simply click on this button, and this is just always going to be here for you. We do have a 24/7 call center. So this kind of doubles back to that code word system I had in place. So if you ever want to be able to call the call center, they are available 24/7. You provide them with your account code and your code word, and then you'll be smooth sailing, and they can help you out with whatever you need. Your account managers will generally work your typical office hours, and that will depend on the account manager. But they will have a 24-hour SLA to answer your questions. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. All right, and I see the next question has been answered by my manager, so feel free to double check the questions box there for that one. And I'll keep the window open here a little bit longer to see if I have any final questions. Okay, it does not look like I have any additional questions. So I would like to thank everybody very much for your time and your patience in today's training. Thank you for attending, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for choosing Comdata.